what? It's enough that I have to think about what I'm saying, but I
Right.
need to consider what I'm wearing, but not only the colors.
Style actually is a tool that can be used to make other people think differently about you. I got these really cool glasses. I walked into the firm and the partners are like, I like your glasses. All of a sudden, they were treating me with this gravitas. It was wild.
Lawyers need to be online. They need a LinkedIn presence. They need to be building their client base. It's like if you can nail that branding for you, understand what your colors are, what your style is, what you look like, they see you as this serious, high-flying, high-powered lawyer who means business.
Nowadays, LinkedIn is kind of like your virtual business card. So it's important.
I really want to hear about your story from lawyer to stylist.
You don't want to feel like the old lady, but you also want to show up as authoritative. And what you wear is the first thing that speaks on your behalf. You know, it's non-verbal, but it's your first communication.
In law, style isn't superficial, it's strategy. How you present yourself shapes how you're perceived, not just in the courtroom, but in boardroom meetings, Zoom calls, in the office. Style builds trust before you speak a word. It signals confidence, attention to detail, professionalism. Because in law, people don't just buy your expertise, they buy how safe, credible, and capable you make them feel. Today, we're speaking to Estelle Winsett. She is a lawyer turned style strategist. She helps women attorneys command respect and confidence. Today, we're picking her brain about why style really matters in law. And I'm really, really excited to speak with you, Estelle. Do you want to talk about who you are, what you do, and why you're here today?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited we're finally talking too. So I am a lawyer turned personal stylist, and I focus on helping women attorney build wardrobes that really make them feel powerful and send the message they want to send. And I have been full-time in that for almost 2 years. It's crazy. But yeah, I love it. Something that lights me up, and it's really about helping women feel confident.
That's amazing. I love the fact that you've gone from lawyer to stylist, so completely different things. So important though, because like we were talking about before off air, it's like knowing what to wear in the right situation is so important for how you're perceived. How important is it in your perspective, what women wear, how they can feel empowered in different environments, whether it's an interview or court or an event? How important is it?
It's so important. And, you know, as women lawyers, there's so many different settings that we go into that require completely different dress codes. I mean, you know, a firm retreat is a whole lot different, obviously, than going to court. And you still want to feel put together. And if you feel like you're wearing the wrong thing or that you're looking frumpy or outdated, I mean, it's horrible. And, you know, especially now, I think more and more attorneys are entering the workplace, and some of the younger attorneys look really stylish. And so a lot of my clients will come to me and say, I can't compete with the 20-year-olds. I have no idea what to wear. So you start to second guess yourself, and you don't want to feel like the old lady, but you also want to show up as authoritative. And so finding a way to do it where you feel like you're not trying too hard, but you also look put together. It's a balance that I work with my clients on.
Yeah. Can you give any examples of, because we were talking about the Johnny Depp trial, and I think it's really important, the psychology behind what you wear and how it can create an impact.
For sure. The psychology of color is really cool because you can actually evoke different emotions depending on what you're wearing. I love thinking back. You look at the Johnny Depp trial, and Camila Vasquez wore that really is like solid white. It was a dress or a skirt suit for her closing argument. And obviously she was trying to assert that Johnny was innocent, and white can do that. And if you're really strategic about it when you're in court, especially at trial, it's important. If you want to come across as relatable or approachable, blue is a good color for you. If you really want to go in hard charging powerhouse, then red or black. But black can sometimes be a little bit off-putting too, because it can be a little bit intimidating. So you just got to think through all that. But yeah, as far as examples, I was just thinking about a client I worked with recently, and she came to me because she was a mom and she had small kids and she was a partner, but she felt like, you know, she looked young for her age and she wasn't feeling like she was showing up powerfully. And she just kind of wanted something of her very own, you know, like, and I know that I have 3 kids, and it's easy to kind of lose yourself as you become, mom or your partner, like you're trying to kind of do things for everyone. But she wanted to have a style that made her feel good. And so we worked together. And the best part was, she would come into me and tell me that people were like, wow, Amanda's showing up, taking names, like all of a sudden she was just kind of getting this feedback that, she hadn't gotten before, or going to a conference. Like I helped her figure out the outfits for a legal conference. And so she knew exactly what to wear, and she was getting compliments from everyone. And so her confidence just went through the roof. That's what's fun, because it's not just about your performance. It does increase your performance, but you just are happier when you feel really confident and you're wearing clothes that fit your body, and, you just feel like a powerhouse. But yeah, color's interesting. I love helping people think through that, because, it's really a strategic move as opposed to just vanity.
And out of interest there, Estelle, does this mean that when it comes to clothing and color and what we wear, actually as women, we have an advantage over men?
Yes. I mean, think about this. Like if a woman walks in a red pantsuit, think of the difference she's going to make than a man who's got a red tie. I mean, that's not going to have the same impact. We really do. And if you think about it, that's what I get really excited about, because we have more options. And I know that can be overwhelming, but also it's more options to stand out in all the right ways. Men don't have that. I mean, they have a tie and, socks, because they're not going to go in a red, suit to court, but we can. And so I think when you think of it that way, it's kind of a superpower.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? I didn't start thinking about style and how important is what you wear until, well, number one, I met Helen. She drilled it into me.
I'm actually not very stylish, so I don't know how that happened.
That is awesome. Hear more.
I'm always going on about brands, aren't there? We have brand colors.
Yeah, that's another thing to consider, isn't it? Actually, brand colors. Yeah, you drilled it into me. And then number two, when I went to my first big event where I was actually speaking on a stage, and I got told, you've got to think about the psychology of what you're wearing. And I was like, what? It's enough that I have to think about what I'm saying, but right. I need to consider what I'm wearing, but not only the colors, but I was told things like, and you probably be able to elaborate more on this. For example, let's say you wear a low cut top, or even just a V-neck, and you're showing your neck, or even just a little bit of your upper chest. That can make you look, I don't want to say inferior, but in a weaker position, because, for example, men don't expose their even neck or upper chest because they're wearing usually a shirt in these types of events. So I was told, if you're wearing a cut top, to wear a big necklace in order to show more power. And I thought that was very, very interesting. I don't know if you've got any of these type of psychological hacks, so to speak.
Yeah, well, and when you're speaking, there's a whole other factor of you're moving around a lot. You don't want to feel like, your clothes are going to work with you while you're moving, or a skirt. If you're sitting high up on a stage, you want to make sure that, you're not flashing people unintentionally, all these things that you're thinking about. But I think I do remember you were wearing that, was it kind of that turquoise pantsuit? I loved it. And that's the thing, you have the opportunity to do that, because you go to these legal conferences and it's a sea of black, maybe gray for people who are feeling crazy, And people are like, wow. And, it's fun, it's memorable. And for all the introverts out there, style is the best way to start conversations when you are at a conference and you don't know anyone, because women will come up to you and just say, oh my God, I love what you're wearing. Or for me, I love earrings and jewelry, and so whatever it is your thing, you have an opportunity to stand out, because people are usually blending in at those conferences. I don't know if you noticed that too, but it's really fun. And if you have a signature style, that maybe a signature color, even sometimes women will do that, then you show up at every conference, you're always gonna be the one in red, or you're always gonna be the one in turquoise. Then that really makes you memorable. That's what you want when you're meeting new people and networking.
Wow, that's really fascinating, isn't it? Because that kind of goes to that brand idea, doesn't it? That, if you are somebody who's got your own business, or maybe even if you founded your own law firm, you'll have probably thought through all this. It's like, okay, what's your brand palette? What are your colors? What are your fonts? How are you looking? Because, I know a lot of lawyers, don't think like this because we're not trained on this. It was only when I really started a business I thought about this. But you want people at a glance to see something and think, oh, right, that's Estelle, or that's Holly. And they recognize it even on a subconscious level. So I love what you're saying here. And it's certainly not something that I do to date. So I feel like I'm learning in this conversation, which is, actually thinking about how you're being seen in person as well. Like if you've always got that red on you, or always something about, actually, you know what? I think we have kind of got a thing, which is that, well, normally, actually, we're both doing it now, aren't we? I think I started it and then Holly jumped on, which was the red lipstick.
Yeah.
Yes,
Generally, we
it's a
do
great
podcasts
thing.
with red lipstick.
It doesn't have to be just in your face. It can be something that is just significant to you. For me, I'm not wearing it because the glare is bad here, but I love cat eye glasses. Like that's my thing. And that was kind of my first epiphany that style actually is a tool that can be used to make other people think differently about you. Because in law school, after law school, I didn't realize I was losing my vision. I mean, all that reading, right? And all of a sudden my husband's like, yeah, I think you need to go to the eye doctor, because I was not seeing things until it was like right in my face. And I got these really cool glasses, and I'd never, worn glasses. And I walked into the firm and the partners are like, I like your glasses. And, I was a, 5th or 6th year associate. All of a sudden they were treating me with this gravitas that, I should have deserved a long time ago. And I'm like, are you serious? Like the only thing I changed was a pair of glasses. And all of a sudden, I mean, it was wild. And, I saw it with opposing counsel. I saw it with judges. And that was the only thing I did. I was like, well, I'm on to something, because this is pretty cool that the only thing I did was change one thing about my appearance. And all of a sudden I'm getting respect. And it's women, I think sometimes we have to do that. And it's like, don't give yourself that barrier, have these tools and be strategic about it. And then that's one less barrier that you have to overcome.
Definitely. When I was like 20 years old, I bought some fake glasses to make myself look older and be taken more seriously. Because when I was 20, I looked like 13.
Me too. Oh my gosh. It was so bad. And I was wearing those oversized boxy suits. I mean, I literally looked like I was drowning in my mom's oversized suit or something. It was awful. Not a good look.
Now I actually need glasses to see. So
that happens to all of us, doesn't it, as lawyers? Like you just start going blind at some point. I've got a really a question I'm desperate to ask you on this glasses as well, because so I don't know if you've ever read the book The Alter Ego Effect. I think it's by Herman, but anyway, it's one of these top American coaches, and he talks about basically the power in terms of building your confidence and your authority of leaning into the idea of an alter ego. So for example, Beyonce, when she goes on stage, she imagined she's Sasha Fierce. She started out as a gospel singer, didn't have the confidence back in the 90s or whenever to do all that kind of sexy dancing. So she built into this alter ego. And he uses the kind of Superman example of, you've got Clark Kent, who I guess has the glasses, and then you've got Superman. He sort of changes in some way. But he also uses the example of if you have something physical, that can really help you get into a different state. So for you, if you're going into that meeting and you want to be really powerful, there's something about you putting on those glasses and you're stepping into this different persona, which gives you confidence.
100%. Style can help you really embody that and feel really powerful, and then it's like this thing where you start to feel powerful and then others notice that, then they treat you that way. And then it's like this back and forth that just builds on itself in a really positive way. Whereas if you are feeling self-conscious about what you're wearing, you'll show up more timid, you won't take up space, and then people react that way. And you have the other effect of it just going the downward spiral, which no one wants on that. But also too, have you ever, I'll think about style and trying to make yourself feel confident before a meeting is also think about Amy Cuddy. Have you seen her TED talk about power poses and taking up space? And there was, Holly, are you familiar? It's a study done. She's a social psychologist, and she basically did the study about having people stand in different ways and to then test how they did well on tests or how they felt. And there's literally a confidence that you can get from just like doing a superwoman pose, like standing in front of the mirror, put your hands on your hip, take up all the space. It's crazy. Like you can do that in the bathroom on the way before, going into a big pitch or a big presentation or an argument, and couple that with the clothes that you're really looking and embodying the part. It can play a huge factor in you feeling confident and powerful and going in and just killing it.
Yeah, I can imagine. We've got some nice comments here. Chris says, men, they've got 3 colors of suits. Christina says, red is such a powerhouse color. So true, Christina. Although we were talking about the effects of wearing red going to an interview, which can be quite negative.
But maybe we should ask Estelle that question here, actually. We've kind of talked about the positive effects, haven't we, of, dressing the right way, how it can empower you, how it can give you confidence, get you noticed in the right ways. What are the dangers here with bringing in color or dressing in certain ways? What do we need to be careful of, Estelle?
Well, yeah, I mean, you want to know the environment you're going into. When you're interviewing for a position, that's not the time to show your personality full force in your style because you don't know the person yet. And, they don't want to be afraid that you're going to walk in with something crazy, if they don't know, anything about you. And what you wear is the first thing that speaks on your behalf. It's non-verbal, but it's your first communication. So you want to be a little more conservative when you're going in for an interview. But that doesn't necessarily mean boring. I mean, you can have a really interesting suit that has, an asymmetry on the neckline or just something different. I mean, there are ways to bring in that personality without it being a bold red pantsuit. But, you want to know where you're going. Like, and like I mentioned earlier, I mean, you go to a firm retreat, that really stresses my clients out. And I remember, because I went to tons of them, you don't want to wear shorts while you're in front of your partners, or because a lot of times they're at the beach or they're, some resort. And navigating all that can be really challenging. So if you end up wearing something that is not appropriate, then you start feeling self-conscious, and then you give off that energy and you're fidgeting a lot. And then when you fidget, then that's when people, it's distracting and it totally reduces your authority. So I think for me, fidgeting is one of the biggest things that I think women struggle with when they don't have clothes that fit them well. Because that to me is the best indicator of style, if something fits your body, regardless of how expensive it is. And if you think about it, I mean, as women, a lot of times we'll just keep whatever we have. If it's a little bit too small, we're like, I'll just squeeze myself into it, or we'll hide in something super oversized. And then that causes us to fidget, and that reduces how we show up. We're not showing up powerfully.
You mentioned asymmetry there. What is the impact of that? Because I personally actually like to wear a lot of asymmetry, and it makes me feel, I don't know, cool.
Edgier. Yeah. I think it's just those little details just kind of show your personality. And so many times we feel like an imposter, especially, I mean, I know I did when I first started practicing law. And if we're wearing a suit that doesn't feel like us, then we doubly feel like an imposter. And if you can find ways to bring in who you are so that you feel like yourself in your clothes, then, you're going to be more fired up. You're going to feel more confident. And so something even like just an asymmetrical neckline, it's fun. If it's you, if it kind of makes you feel a little cooler, a little edgier, then find those things, because when you don't feel authentic in your style, it shows. There's like a disconnect because you aren't showing up confident because you really don't like what you're wearing. They can't put their finger on it, but they know something's off. And when you're trying to build credibility, that's definitely not going to help your case. Or if you're trying to come across as authoritative, if you're shrinking or giving off some weird kind of vibe. You know what I mean? That when you wear something that doesn't feel like you're just kind of awkward or just not feeling powerful.
Do you think women have to work a little bit harder to be taken more seriously in law based on their appearance?
I think so. At least that was my experience. When you have this tool available to you, why not take advantage of it? Like we said, I mean, we have so many more opportunities to show up and be seen and more visible if we really lean into it and be intentional about it. Kind of another thing, Helen, you were talking about, we were saying, if you have a signature thing, like for you, maybe it's red lipstick, or maybe it's a signature. If it's a signature style, you want to be consistent and wear the same kind of thing. Because if one day you're looking like Kate Middleton, all classic, and then the next day you've got on a leather moto jacket, people are like, who is this person? I don't know what to expect from her. She's just, all over the place. And so finding that's what I work with my clients on, is like intentionally creating your style and then building a wardrobe around it so you're consistent. And that really helps with your brand recognition, because you're showing up the same way and people know what to expect. And when they do know what to expect, then they trust and like you. And that's how you kind of do the whole relationship building and authority building.
This kind of links in, actually, I'm thinking at the moment, with personal branding in a wider sense, doesn't it? Because we're talking about being in the office, being at conferences, all that kind of thing. But actually, and this is the space we're moving into very much now, lawyers need to be online. They need a LinkedIn presence. They need to be building their client base. It's like, if you can nail that branding for you and understand, what your colors are, what your style is, what you look like, get some professional photos done, then get them up on LinkedIn, get people knowing you and looking professional. So it isn't like, it's great to have some candid photos, I think, and it's great for people to see you in the everyday, but also it's making the impression on people that you want to make, isn't it? So they see you as this serious, high-flying, high-powered lawyer who means business.
100%. I think that when we're unintentional or it's kind of haphazard, it shows us that we don't take our business seriously. We don't take our profession seriously. And now with LinkedIn, if you don't have a photograph on there, that grayed out photo is, people are going to think it's a bot. They're not even going to really think it's a person. And don't have a photo from 15 years ago when your hair was a different color and you look a lot younger. Because then you go to a conference and what do? People look you up on LinkedIn. If you look nothing like the photograph, then they're gonna be like, I don't even know if this is the same person, but something's off. Why do they have a photo when they don't look the same? That's really important because it shows that you're being very intentional about how you're showing up and you're professional and you want people to know what you look like now. I think that as lawyers, we do that a lot sometimes is we just don't think about that. But nowadays, LinkedIn is kind of like your virtual business card. So it's important.
I think what you're saying, Helen, is really, really so true. And I think it's going to become more important more than ever nowadays, with, like you say, people having to build a presence on LinkedIn because that's where they're going to get opportunities or promotions, or that's where people are being seen. And like we always talk about, it's your virtual 24/7 networking room. And like you say, having your brand goes beyond what you're posting on LinkedIn. It goes to your appearance. And I think that's absolutely vital. We've actually got a really interesting comment from Hannah who says, we always wear our brand colors at conferences and events, and it's really effective. I think as a small law firm, for example, where you can do this more feasibly and encourage people to wear the brand colors, that can be such a striking thing and it can really make an impact, right?
Definitely. And also find things that are in your brand colors, but also feel like you. And the reason that came up for me is I was thinking about a client that I worked with, and she was doing some marketing videos and she was opening her own law firm. And there were certain colors that she liked that were part of her branding. And then the marketing agency gave her a style book of outfits that looked nothing like her. And she called me in a panic because she's like, I don't look like this at all. And so I helped her work with the branding agency and come and find clothes that were in her colors, but felt like her. So I think it's the combination of being consistent and feeling good in what you have on. And then also the colors of your brand are reinforcing who you are. And if you have a whole team that's kind of working together in similar colors, then you really stand out. And it's more important than people think to reinforce the brand and to get noticed in the right way.
I've got a slightly sort of, I suppose it is probably a controversial story on this now in terms of my career. I was quite aware. I think I was always very aware of how I was coming across. I was extremely boring in what I wore because I was just black and white, as I pretty much am now. But I was always very aware of what impressed certain people. I don't mean that in the kind of way of, no, I did not go in there in mini skirts to certain parties. not that kind of impressing people. What I mean is actually, I'm thinking of one particularly quite old school female partner. I think there were a couple actually, but I'm thinking of one in particular who was very, very powerful. And I knew that she just liked it when people were always very well turned out, had their nails done, wore suit jackets, wore heels. Okay. Rightly or wrongly, I know that's hugely controversial now, women and heels and skirts and nails and all this kind of thing, but I knew that's what she liked, for better or for worse. So I played the game. And whenever I went to her office, I would put on my suit jacket, I would put my lipstick on, I would check my nails, I would put my heels on, even if I was wearing a different outfit. But she saw me in the right way for her. And I'm confident that really helped me. So I feel like it's controversial to admit that now, but I'd just be so interested in your views on this.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're working at a firm, there is a firm culture, right? And, in order to be a team player or to be, you want to be in alignment with whatever that culture is. And that does involve dress code often. And, especially if it's a firm where clients are coming in the office. And if you have older partners, for example, who are a little bit more conservative and they have a certain way they dress, well, if you're going to be going into their office or you're going to be supposed to be meeting with a client with them, you want to make sure that what you're wearing is in alignment with them because it's that whole thing of if you dress like someone or someone feels like you, that makes you more likable and also more trustworthy. So there's like a psychology behind it. But also, if you want to work at a firm and that's their dress code, then lean into it because otherwise you're creating a barrier. I had the same thing. I had a woman that was a boss and she hated open-toed shoes for some reason, which drove me crazy because at the time it was really hard to find closed-toed shoes. And I played the game too. I was like, fine, I'll wear these. They were ugly too. I was like, oh, this is painful. I think that sometimes people feel like they should get to wear anything they want. And that's true, but just know that what you wear says something. And to stand on principle is not always the best thing if it's going to mean somehow damaging your reputation or having people think less of you. And I think also, I was talking to someone the other day about kind of generational differences. I think, we see so many generations in the law firm, right? And if you have a partner who's a little bit more old school, then they have an expectation in their mind of what an associate should look like. And if you don't, and they're not necessarily going to tell you, but it's like subconsciously they're thinking, what is going on? And if it doesn't jive with them, they may be less likely to want to give you cases. It's these kind of things that stack the benefits in your, or stack things in your favor, instead of having things that could be, something that could be off-putting when you're in a law firm that has a certain culture. That being said, if you're not, and you're not, or if it really bothers you, then go find somewhere else where you feel more like yourself. I think that's another way too to empower yourself. You don't have to play that game, but if you want that firm and there's things about it, and if you want to work there more than you care about having to look a certain way, then stay in the firm. I think it's about figuring out what you want the most and, stacking the odds in your favor.
I'm aware on that point, Estelle. We had earlier on some questions around sort of authenticity. I think it's when we were talking about the glasses and whether sort of stepping into a character on stage, that sort of idea, whether it's sort of, I suppose the question is, does it undermine your authenticity in any way to actually play this game? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think that there's a way, that's what kind of like my sweet spot of what I like to do with the clients I work with, is there's a way to bring in the personality and still play the game. There's a variety of brands out there. I think everyone just thinks there's Ann Taylor and Banana Republic, but there's actually a wealth of brands out there that are still professional and look put together, but that can have, little parts of you sprinkled throughout in a way that you still feel like you. And I think that's the trick, is if you're not wearing, just find ways to bring in your personality, even if it's in small ways, so that you still feel like yourself. That's when you're going to be showing up more authentically and powerfully.
I'm conscious that we are coming to time, but I really want to hear about your story from lawyer to stylist. How did you make the change, and what was it all about?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a long story. I'll try to give you the version. Yeah, like I knew in 5th grade I wanted to be a lawyer. My dad's an attorney, both my sisters. And so I just went straight through from undergrad to law school, and I practiced for about 7 years here in Memphis, because that's where I'm from, and I'm still here. But I knew I was going to start a family, and I was really struggling to separate work from home. You're trying to go to bed and all of a sudden you're worried about, did I miss a statute of limitations? I got all these things that are popping up in your head, and I just was like, I wanted to be present when I had a family. And so I started looking at different ways that I could use my law degree. And I kind of stumbled into legal recruiting because I was thinking about maybe being a contract attorney, and I wanted to know more about that. And then the guy who interviewed me was like, well, you want to come work for me? And so it was totally like this unexpected thing, but I loved it. And I feel like that was kind of my start of venturing away from the traditional practice of law. And so I got into reviewing resumes and playing matchmaker and learning how you position yourself to an employer or potential employer. And so from there, I ended up going to be the Dean of Career Services at University of Memphis Law School, which was my alma mater. And what was really cool is they let me build it from the ground up, because my predecessor had gone and had been there for years. And so I was able to create something. And that kind of sparked this creativity that I'd forgotten about, because law school beat the creativity out of me. Same with style, black, gray, but I just started learning how to build things and research and that kind of thing. And I ended up doing that for a few years and realizing I wanted to do the firm side equivalent. And so I did a lot of research on that and ended up creating a department of professional development at a firm. I know this is kind of a long story, but there were like little hints along the way that were kind of increasing my desire to be an entrepreneur and my desire to do things on my own, but also the creative part. I started liking style again, and I kind of dabbled in it on the side, and people kept coming to me that were my attorney friends saying, I can't find anything to wear, and I feel awful about myself, and all these things. And so I started helping them. And then, of course, as the lawyer me, right, I had to go down all the personal style certifications and courses, you got to get all that kind of stuff. But the long and short of it is, this desire kind of started building, and I realized it was so much more than style. And I really wanted to help women attorneys feel confident, because I could see how it was holding them back. And so I ultimately made the leap about a year and a half ago to go all in on this business. But for me, it's all about being intentional, marketing yourself, positioning yourself in the best way so that you can show up confident. So that's kind of my long-winded story about how I got here.
That's so cool. We love to talk about lawyers who are just doing things differently now. And it's amazing what routes people go in. And I never thought stylist would be like, it's such a big jump, isn't it?
It is. I never, if you told me in 5th grade that I was going to be a personal stylist, I would have thought you're crazy. but I look back now and it makes so much sense, in terms of my journey. Yeah. Because I know it. Like, that's the other thing too, is I've walked in those shoes. And so I know what rooms you're walking into. So I know the dress code and what's expected, but I also know how to like go up to the edge and bring in that personality piece. And so that's what I love helping women with.
If you've ever wondered how to build a legal career that fits your lifestyle and values, I've created something for you. 25 Ways to Do Law Differently and Get Paid for It is a free guide filled with simple yet impactful ideas for lawyers who want more freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment in their work. Just go to the description where you'll find the link.